Now, Soweto has had an electricity crisis for quite some time. Some would argue even decades. Hundreds of families have been without power, at least recently, for months at a time. Eskom says it's due to tampering with infrastructure and non-payment of bills. However, residents will be voting on this major issue in the upcoming local government elections. We're joined by Dr. Trevor Ngwane of the Soweto Elecricity Crisis Committee and Muzi Shakes Tshabalala, who is for the EFF in Johannesburg. Dr. Ngwane, perhaps let me come to you and allow you just to set the context for us. Soweto residents have been raising the issue of electricity for decades now, but perhaps we can focus ourselves on a democratic South Africa. And it seems to have been a hot political potato, whether we're talking the issue of the debt, whether we're talking the current load reduction that has affected many of the areas in Soweto quite negatively, and people sometimes just being cut off because they live in a certain area and Eskom is trying to deal with the amount of illegal connections. From your view, how do residents feel about all this?
Thank you very much. Yeah, the residents of Soweto, and in fact, many other working class areas, townships, shack settlements, villages in South Africa are suffering because there is an electricity crisis. In other words, the government and Eskom are failing to provide a safe, clean, affordable, and reliable supply of energy for all. So there's a lot of power failures, cut-offs, as you say, uncertainty. You know, life has lost its sweetness because when it is dark, it is very hard to conduct your everyday normal life.
And many residents made that clear to the ANC President Cyril Ramaphosa and some of his colleagues when they were out on the campaign trail in Soweto, demanding that something be done to urgently address the issue. Do you think that the taking over of the infrastructure from Eskom by the city of Johannesburg is the answer to this problem?
I don't think so, actually, you know, because City Power is taking over on the exact same basis as Eskom. In fact, already, you know, in our community organizations, social movements, you know, in Gauteng, people of Terfontein, people of, you know, some of these southern suburbs complain about City Power, the real bad billing system, and also City Power undertaking cut-offs because people cannot afford the high tariffs. Remember also that City Power, because its local government, is going to add a markup to the price that Eskom charges residents.
Let me come to you, Muzi, in studio. You, of course, are the EFF Johannesburg Regional Secretary, and these are just some of the issues that I imagine as a political organization you're capitalizing on. But do you have tangible solutions to the electricity crisis? Should your party or your representative be voted into council?
No, thanks, Kathy. Thanks for having me here. Yes, we do have solutions to the problem that we are confronted with across the country, but now we're going to zoom it into Soweto or Johannesburg. In the city of Johannesburg, we are clear in our manifesto that we are going to make sure that each and every household that they qualify for the indigent, they're going to get that basic needs for free, right? There are those who are willing to pay, but the Eskom continue to bill them incorrectly. Now, the argument is that they want to pay, but they want a flat rate. But if you were to go to Soweto and check how many townships that are there in Soweto, and all of them, they speak the same language to say, we are willing to pay as the resident, but we can only go as to from this point to this point as opposed to what the Eskom is billing us. Now, people, we agree to say, let's continue pay, but we're going to have a clear system when we take over the government. We're going to receive the list of all those that qualifies for free basic services. We're going to make sure that we forward that to Eskom to say, those
But that already happens. So
yes.
Already councils have a list of indigent households. I know that many of those lists are not often updated as well as they should. But the supply of free electricity to indigent households is already being effected under ANC policy. So we're talking now about the electricity crisis that whoever comes into government is going to inherit as a result of what the governance of the city has been. So how will you then be attending to the solution? So will you be doing the same thing that the current mayor, Mpomeran, is promising, to take over the running or in terms of the supply of Eskom to Soweto residents? Where do you even begin with the debt that Soweto residents are said to owe Eskom? And what is the practical plan that you have for this problem?
Look, we cannot continue with the wrong system and make sure that we continue to implement that. We're going to take over the city of Johannesburg, but cut off all the debts and make sure that we go and start from the scratch. I've been saying this, and I'm going to say that because fortunately I'm from Soweto. I'm one of those who are very vocal about the issue that we're confronted with in Soweto. We are saying we are prepared to pay, but we want to pay a flat rate. So let us have a proposed flat rate. Come, let's start. In my area, Eskom introduced the split metering system as opposed to the conventional meters, right? Now, it was more like a pilot project. So you want to charge people in this area whilst other people who have not yet started to charge them. That's unfair. When you implement your system, let it be holistic to everyone so that everyone can start paying. But if you're going to be selective in different townships where you're going to charge this one don't charge, this one you charge abnormal amount, including the same prepaid. When you buy a prepaid, you buy a prepaid, but it's already being fixed. So when you put your units in your system, you'll find that the units are not equivalent to the money that you've spent to buy the electricity. So we feel that it's unfair, but we're going to make sure when we take over government, we're going to provide proper services to our people.
So just to understand, when you say you're going to cut the debt, does that mean that you're going to cancel
Most definitely.
all of Soweto's current debt? Most
definitely, because what we want to make sure, because if we continue with that, it's not going to bear fruitful results that we're aiming at.
Well, Eskom says it cannot give up the infrastructure without that debt being paid. So where are you going to find the money? Where are you going to find the money to pay Eskom?
Initially, I said we're going to take. You said that the ANC has done that. So if it was a success, that move of taking all the indigenous to Eskom and lobby for them and make sure that they receive those basic services, especially electricity, from Eskom for free, then come to people who are running businesses. Because when we approach this matter blanketly, so it's going to be difficult for us to understand. There are people who are in the indigent policy category. There are people who are in the middle, right, who are willing to pay the household. There are people who are running businesses in their own houses. There are people who are in the business areas, right? So here, we're going to charge them differently. But the tariffs and the flat rate is going to...
So effectively, you are saying that every household will have a different tariff depending on what? The income of the household.
Exactly.
The income or the activities?
The income and the activities. Remember, you might operate in the same township, in the same street where you are running a business. The same setup like mine, I'm not running any business. I don't have any income. So what are we going to do? I'm not going to charge Kathy that is running a business as equally as we're charging Muzi. But what do you do? You need to charge Kathy differently because she's making profit. Right?
Okay.
Yes.
So, Dr. Ngwane, you've heard then what Muzi has to say, the EFF's Johannesburg Regional Secretary. Does that sound like a viable solution? Is that something that you think Sowetans will buy into?
Well, firstly, I think the EFF as a left party should be talking about revolution, taking over everything, because we have problems everywhere. But when it comes to electricity, I think maybe, okay, I understand where he's coming from, and his heart and orientation is correct, because he's saying that electricity should be affordable, which means that, you know, one should look first at the pockets of the consumers before you charge them, which means that those without any money should still get electricity. I think that's the principle. Of course, we can debate exactly how to do this. For example, I don't think the indigency policy is a great policy. I rather prefer, because it requires people to queue and demonstrate how poor they are. It has a cutoff point, if you earn less than this, whatever. So it's also an administrative nightmare. But I think that the best.
Dr. Ngwane?
A rising block tariff system. So it means you have a lifeline, rising block tariffs. So from 0 kilowatt hour to 500 kilowatt hour, it's free for everyone. And then from 500 kilowatt hour to 600, maybe it's 50 cents per kilowatt hour. From 600 to 800, each unit, it gets more expensive per unit. That way, it will cover what the EFF is saying, in the sense that those who are doing business will pay more per unit.
All right. Dr. Trevor Ngwane, the Soweto Electricity Crisis Committee member, and Muzi Shakes Tshabalala, he's the EFF Johannesburg Regional Secretary. I think the crux of the issue really is the extent to which electricity is a big issue in the city, and affordability, as you've heard, becomes one of the determining factors. How exactly we work our way around that, I think, is an ongoing debate.